Welcome on into GoldSheet TV Week 7 Best Bets Edition. Myself and my co-host Dan Alexander at Newbie Talks on X/Twitter. Coming down with our favorite bets for the Week 7 NFL slate. Got a lot of comments on the last video, and we absolutely love the comments. Keep them coming. Keep telling us what you're betting. Keep telling us to stop bitching. Keep telling us that you like the content, that you hate the content. All things, we love it. Absolutely. And again, hit the like button, smash it, touch it gently, do whatever, and subscribe to the channel. As always, newbie, we're getting right into it. First game on the agenda. This is a client play at WagerTalk for the GoldSheet. Washington Commanders. We got -2. It's sitting 2.5 right now. Always want to keep it at as close to playable. It's actually getting up some expensive twos left. 2.5 to 120. Some cheap threes out there as well. Definitely would say to get it at 2.5 if you can. Total at 37.5. Like, wow, these low totals, man. Newbie, before I get into my thoughts, do you have any thoughts, comments, concerns on this football game, or you kind of just want to see where my head's at here?
Yeah, I think the Commander side makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. We've also continued to see injury woes for this Giants team. So that's obviously going to be a narrative heading into it. And you don't want to have offensive line issues when you're facing off against this front seven of the Washington Commanders. I mean, think about what they did against one of the stoutest units in the NFL, and that's the healthy Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. So this one, it's a pass game for me. It feels like the Washington side is a little bit square simply because it's like, hey, it's the Giants. It's, but regardless, square plays can win as well. And this one makes a heck of a lot of sense. So I'm wondering what led you to this side. And also, you mentioned that it's the best bets edition here for week 7. I think we should just call this edition the bets edition because I don't know how best some of these plays that I have coming for the folks are. I hate this card this week, man. And with 6 teams on bye, it's a good week to be a little selective here, but we'll still get the folks some plays here. You know how we do.
Yeah, last week was just not by design. As handicappers, we look at the board, we figure out what we like to bet, and we bet what we bet, and we give out to our clients what we end up actually betting. Last week happened to be a higher volume week for the GoldSheet, at least. And this week, it's not by design, even though there's only 13 games or whatever there is this week with the 6 teams on the bye. Doesn't mean that I'm only looking for fewer plays. If there were more plays to make, would be making more. But great point there, newbie. So what took me over the edge here, and while I do agree with you that this is a situation where the Commanders seem square, and as a Washington Commander fan, this is a situation where I generally would fade Washington. Like giving me New York Giants plus 2.5 in a teaser, I still might tease the Giants up to 8.5 and try to win both ways on this one, because this Washington Commanders team, their MO for the Ron Rivera tenure has been when they're supposed to win, they lay an egg. And when they're supposed to lose, they win outright or put on their best performance of the season. This has been true mostly when Scott Turner was the offensive coordinator. Now, of course, we made the switch to Bieniemy this offseason. Over the last 2 years, according to Football Outsiders, Washington was one of the least, or the teams that had the least amount of variance week to week because you knew exactly what you were going to expect from them. You knew that they were going to run the football, that their defense was going to let up a couple big plays, but mostly control the line of scrimmage and stop the run game. And then whoever didn't turn the ball over between Taylor Heineke and the opponent was going to win that football game. And most of the time in games we were supposed to win, he turned it over. Games we weren't supposed to win, we play our best to win. That was literally Washington's MO. I had not bet Washington at all this season, just simply because, as a fan, like I made my most money betting on or against fading or taking the Commanders because I think I knew them so well. But I realized that this season I did not know them as well because there was a completely new system coming in. So with Giants missing, now they just lost another offensive lineman in practice today too. This is before the report from yesterday. They literally might not have a single starting offensive lineman playing in this matchup. And Daniel Jones, who is the Commanders' killer, might not be playing either for the New York Giants. He said he wants to play, but his neck just is not still 100%. So if you have Tyrod Taylor running for his life against this Commanders defense, who benched Emmanuel Forbes last week, who's been their weakest link on defense, I don't know how Washington doesn't win this football game. We're not saying that Washington now has to go out and they're going to put up 40 points and there's a whole new team. Like 17 might be the number to get here with how bad the Giants offense looks. Yep. And with the pressure we could put on them, I'd be more hard pressed to I bet that there's a higher probability that Tyrod Taylor turns the football over or somebody on the Giants turn the football over, then Sam Howell, even though the Giants defense is, I'm not obviously not good, but it's not horrendous. Am I convincing you a little bit, newbie here, or what? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. And when you're talking about the NFC East, these teams are always battling against each other. But yeah, it boils down to me is if I'm playing this game, to quote Teddy Covers, I'm laying. I don't see a handicap that would lead me to the Giants side. When it seems that obvious, it kind of worries me a little bit. But there's definitely makes a lot of sense to me for sure. No disagreement on me. While it might not be on my card, that if I was picking this in, a contest line or whatever, I'd grab that 2.5 for sure before it gets to 3.
Yeah, definitely got to make sure to get that before 3 because that changes everything. And like just general for betting the NFL, if you bet -2 and -2.5, and then the game closes 3, whatever happens on
Yep.
the field happens on the field. As a sports bettor, you did your job in that scenario. But that is a 3% play. Washington -2. We got the 2. Definitely still good at 2.5. Try to get that under 3 if you can. A lot of advantages for Washington there. Moving on to the West Coast, a divisional matchup of the NFC West. The Arizona Cardinals heading into Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Arizona, looking at the WagerTalk Live odds screen, 7.5 point dogs, basically painted across the board. Some 8s out there as well. 44.5 total. Newbie, talk to me. Cardinals, Seahawks. Are Arizona looking to bring back that mojo they had to start the year, or are they dead in the water now, as everyone expected to start the season?
Yeah, it really seems like they're starting to come back to earth a little bit as far as seeming like the team that we were promised with the Arizona Cardinals. It does feel like that first 3 weeks was a little bit of fool's gold. And the funny thing is, if you look at those 3 weeks where they were covering games where they were winning outright against the Dallas Cowboys, who was that against? It was against 3 straight NFC East teams. And if you know anything, Jonathan Gannon is the head coach now of the Arizona Cardinals. And that's a guy who spent a couple of years preparing to play against NFC East teams. When it has been teams that he isn't as familiar with, that have had roster turnover, that he doesn't see twice a year in his coordinator roles, it's been nothing but ugliness for this Arizona Cardinals team, specifically in division matchups. They're 0-2 against the spread, losing by 18 points on average. But outside of those games, you have a 35-16 loss to the 49ers. You have the 34-20 loss to the Bengals. And then that Rams game most recently that wasn't even as close as it seemed, the 26-9. I just think that his number, it makes a heck of a lot of sense. -7.5 with Seattle. I don't think many people are going to be rushing to lay that, but I think they win by at least 10 points here against Arizona. The Seattle Seahawks are on a nice little roll here. And when you talk about strength of schedule and teams that they've faced, the one loss that a team that we both are starting to come around on in the Detroit Lions was to this Seattle Seahawks team. And it was while they were on the road. So coming home, you get that nice home field advantage that they already have. Cardinals, what do they really have to play for? There's now talk of Kyler Murray being reactivated, going back to practice. So, does Josh Dobbs try and play his tail off? I don't know. All I know is 7.5 seems a little bit short to me. And even though it's over a touchdown, even though it's over the extra point, it's over that key number of 7.5 or of 7, it still makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. It's square, it's whatever you want to call it, but I'm laying it with Seattle against the Arizona Cardinals, who they're starting to seem like a lot of what they thought coming into the year. I think those covers did nothing but get them overvalued in the marketplace. That buy, low spot is already gone on this Cardinals team. So even though this is a little bit juicy, I don't think the Cardinals are going to be staying within 10 in this one. So I'm going to lay it with Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks coming home with the 12th man against the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I think you made a lot of great points there. So I don't think this is square at all. I think the casual NFL fan still sees the other side where it's like the Arizona Cardinals beat the Cowboys, they almost beat the Giants, like almost beat the Commanders, like 7.5 points. I'm getting over the touchdown. Like I think there's even more so to take the Cardinals. But I think what you said was 100% correct that the market itself is finally re-catching up to the fact that Josh Dobbs is your starting quarterback. Like, yes, he put on a couple of good performances to start the season. but there is not much more to be said about the Arizona Cardinals. And then you go from a matchup perspective. Seattle coming off the disappointing loss in Cincinnati. You watch the box score. You say, how did not Seattle Seahawks not win? Plain and simple, because they could not score touchdowns in the red zone, which is a problem we've discussed ad nauseum on the Tuesday edition, where Newbie and I talked a lot about some key interesting topics. So still definitely worthwhile to check out our Tuesday episode before pitching events this week. But I don't have much to add about this game. I am with you that you could lay the 7.5. I think it's a great bet. I just am going to tease the hell out of Seattle this week. I'm going to use them in Survivor this week. I'm riding that
I
train
like that
this
quite
way.
a bit.
The theme of this week, Newbie, and we talked about a little bit too, is there are so many good teaser options. I'm looking at the WagerTalk last week. You got Atlanta. I don't even need to go over them. Just look at the board, and you'll kind of see them hanging out there. The one I would avoid, I'll say, though, is Buffalo, just because I'm scared of those injuries, even though the Patriots look to be as bad as the Cardinals. But from a matchup perspective, Seattle great at stopping the run. Arizona, no James Conner, going to be tough to run the football. Early down success rates on offense. Seattle is great on the early downs. Arizona, terrible on the early downs. And Seattle should be able to run the football all over this Arizona Cardinals team. And this team, now that they're getting a little bit banged up, it's been a couple of weeks, like you said, they played familiar opponents in terms of Jonathan Gannon. Now it's finally back to, yes, the Cardinals are never, quote unquote, tanking. It's the NFL. Teams don't tank, but they're just not good. And I think you can leave it at that, right, Newbie?
Yeah, that's the main part of the handicap for me, is like, you had your chance to bet on Arizona. It was early in the year. I definitely don't think the spot is here. I like that tease a hell of a lot. And if you still have the Seahawks, this is the week to use them. I would be floored. I mean, think about what happened last week. You can never say there's anything like a lock. You can never say anything like that. And we would never even, hint at that here. But I like Seattle to definitely get it done against Arizona. And I like them enough to place a 1-unit wager on them to get it done by margin, going over the 7.5. But put that in a teaser leg. Absolutely love that for sure.
Yeah, you said 10. I think this could easily be a 17-point game, honestly.
Yeah.
So not that's honestly, when you look at the alt lines, you definitely could. I haven't placed any wagers on that. I haven't laid the 7.5, but the Seattle Seahawks will be in every single teaser I placed this weekend. If they want to lose to the Cardinals this week, from what we've seen in the NFL this year, I'm not even gonna it is what it is. No more bitching.
Exactly.
It's over. We'll talk about that on Tuesday. But like Newbie alluded to earlier, so this is a week where there's just not that many football games in the first place. And obviously the NFL being the NFL, you're going to have accurately priced games in general with not big edges. WagerTalk team has 3 plays, or actually 4 plays, because we do have one for Thursday Night Football up right now, and then 3 for the weekend, including the Commanders. And we have Arizona in a teaser with another team there. But just a game that's going to get so much attention that I think we should definitely discuss is the Detroit Lions heading to the Baltimore Ravens. Newbie, I think we have 2 Super Bowl teams, potentially, not obviously going to win, but that you can make cases for making it all the way to the Super Bowl in this matchup. You have a spread of 3. We saw early money pounding the Ravens. Then we've seen late money pushing that right back. So we have a nice 2-sided game in the market. I have some thoughts, not something I'm running to bet on my card or anything like that, but curious where your head's at here, Newbie, because I think we should be in for a hell of a football game this weekend.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think that this is a really big show me game for the Detroit Lions. I think the part that keeps me off either side is the return home from London for the Baltimore Ravens. But let's be real. I mean, that was a business trip for the Ravens. They looked dominant against the defense that's really given, running teams a lot of fits, throughout the year in what they did against the Tennessee Titans. So I think that was a big time win for the Ravens, maybe a corner turning win for this Baltimore side. But now they face off against a Detroit Lions team that, again, you can say, oh, it's home, it's away, it's this, it's that. All they keep doing is covering spreads. All they keep doing is winning games. And I think it's a little bit understated, this absolute career resurgence that we're seeing from Jared Goff. This is no longer fool's gold. This is no longer a product of a great, nice home field advantage. Like, Jared Goff is winning you football games. And the thing about Jared Goff prior was he'll manage them for you. He won't cost you many football games, but he won't win them for you. He is being a dominant force in this league right now. So I don't have anything that I love in this game. If I had to pick a side, I would probably lean laying the 3 here with Baltimore simply because, again, I think this team has a lot of wind in their sails. Not to say that Detroit doesn't, but going into M&T Bank Stadium when they actually have something to be excited about, and it's not your typical, just usual Sunday buzz. Like, this team does believe that they're a Super Bowl team, and beating a 5-1 team would be a huge feather in their cap for sure. I think they match up nicely with what the Detroit Lions want to do. Also, they're a tough team to defend. So this Lions defense has been solid, but the speed at which Lamar Jackson is able to get out and change planes and change where he is on the football field, that plays in perfectly to the pass rush that the Lions are going to want to send forward. So I've seen this story before, and I feel like it ends with a win. But sitting at 3, I think that's a perfect line to get action on both sides, man. Like, I could totally see this being a field goal game either way.
Yeah, I mean, there's people who, when the steam came in on Baltimore early, got Lions plus 3.5 tickets, and I don't think you'll see that again this before kickoff on Sunday. I think we'll sit 3. This is a huge measuring stick game for the Detroit Lions. We gave them all the credit in the world as they deserved on Tuesday, and now this is their first real big test. Like, yes, the Chiefs was that test, but you got to kind of throw out week 1 when you have the entire summer to prepare for them. That is just kind of its own game in its own right. But not leaving this game without some actionable information, something that you alluded to, Newbie, that I love and I'll put on the record as a prop bet to take a look at and place yourself. I only see it open at 2 books right now because it hasn't just opened yet because it's still Thursday afternoon as we're recording this. Props will be trickling in. But Lamar Jackson over, I see 53.5 rushing yards is a great bet to make. Last year, the Detroit Lions were allowed by far the most rushing yards to quarterbacks last year by 150 plus yards. They allowed it. And this season, you look at their numbers, and they're actually one of the lowest in rushing yards attempts. So you think, wow, did they change the scheme? Like, what did they do? Nope, still Aaron Glenn back there. Nope, still a very man-heavy team. Just the competition they played. Patrick Mahomes, week 1, was the most mobile quarterback they played, and he had 46 yards in that game. And while Mahomes is a great athlete in terms of running, Lamar Jackson obviously has the edge there. And the other argument you can make with Desmond Ridder, he didn't do anything, but they were in a negative game script that entire game, and the Lions dominated the time possession in that football game, so he didn't have chances to run. Lamar Jackson, due to how Detroit plays their defense, should be able to get 50-plus yards. He is still their predominant running back, and depending on the number, I saw like a plus 125 for him to score a touchdown. That's not juicy enough for an anytime touchdown score. But if you get something around maybe the 175 range, I would look to sprinkle there because Lamar still is the number 1 red zone rushing option for Baltimore. Another case in point that the Lions love running the ball up the middle, like right under their center. They got that big, great offensive line. But the Ravens are one of the best inside zone defenses in the National Football League. But then you pair on No Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, who, while he looks like he has all the talent in the world, probably hasn't come together if he even plays yet. And they also have issues in the middle of the field where the Ravens can take advantage of Lamar's legs, maybe some Mark Andrews and whatnot. So gut tells me the Ravens win this game outright, but the smart bettor in me says sit this one out from the sidelines. Don't have to bet every game by any means or any margin. Just root for a good football game. If you have some fantasy players for that, if you find a prop like this Lamar prop, go and ride a prop. But I think it's a game that we could just watch and see, wow, we got 2 heavyweights from different conferences going at it.
Yeah, and I also think this could be, I know that there's going to be so much talk about weather and wind on Sunday. I think out of all the games, this is a crazy low total week. We talked about it on Tuesday. We see like 38s and 41s. This one's sitting at 42.5, 43 in some spots. I think this could be a sneaky over game because I know a lot of people, it's Detroit. They only score the points at home. Like, it's a misnomer now. And I think the Ravens could potentially try and air it out a little bit if that wind isn't a factor. And even if so, both of these teams have strong running attacks, even with Montgomery potentially out in this game. Lions have enough behind him. Hopefully Gibbs plays, even though he's been kind of an afterthought in this offense. I think this could be one of those sneaky over games. So it hasn't been easy finding overs, but if you're asking me, would I rather bet a side or a total in this one? The bet for me would be the over in this game. Might be something I have on my card by Sunday once we figure out exactly what'll happen with the weather. But out of all the games on the board where I think we're going to see a lot of unders again this week, and the lines tell you that, I think we could be seeing an over in this one. So that would be my preferable bet than picking either side.
Yeah, you got Jameson Williams back, stretching the field, did not play many snaps, but in his limited snaps showed that the speedster, downfield threat that they were looking for. They probably have him in there if he stays healthy and stays off FanDuel. So great game to monitor and watch. We have 2 games left for going over. Newbie, this is the game that you're eyeing. We have the Los Angeles Rams hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off the bye. WagerTalk Live odds screen has me Rams laying a 3, but an expensive 3 now. Seeing not many 110s, 115s and up on the 3. Total 44.5. So expecting potentially some offense in this game, up from a 42 opener. How you betting this one, Newbie?
Yeah, so let's call it, a 3.25, so to speak, as this could be moving to 3.5 before Sunday ends up kicking off around 4:05. But this one is just a bit of a head scratcher for me when I just look at the line. -3, that has to have something built in to historical data that we've seen with Tomlin. Everyone talks about Andy Reid and what a great coach he is after the bye. One of the best in the biz is Mike Tomlin, having his guys with extra rest, extra time to prepare. They're 12-4 straight up following a bye week under Mike Tomlin. And also if you look at this stat that we've been using these past couple weeks about Ralph Michaels that he's dropped for his teams before and after the bye, one of the only profitable subsets for teams after the bye are when they're away dogs. And that's what you're seeing here with Pittsburgh. So I get it if you want to make a case for that side. It's an over 54% trend, so nothing crazy there. But again, one of the only profitable subsets. But I just can't get away from, I feel like part of it is because we've had a week to not think about how horrible this Pittsburgh Steelers offense is. And I get it. Deontay Johnson could be activated off of the IR and be ready for this game. But with the bye week, how much work was he really getting? And even if you have Johnson, it doesn't make me think that if the Rams are able to put up points, which I think they will be able to, because yes, the Steelers defense is absolutely formidable. What they do up front with Watt is just something special. However, this Rams team should be on a 3-game winning streak. Like they should have, if they could have connected on 2 deep balls, beaten the Philadelphia Eagles. And then you're talking about a team that is flying high. And they also are trying to dispel a lot of what happened heading into the season, where a lot of people were saying this Rams team is dead. Their defense is horrible. The defense has been more serviceable, but I take the defense out of the equation. I think the Rams are going to be able to score points in this game. And the question is, can the Steelers keep up with it? If the Rams get to about 24 points, you're telling me that the Steelers can score 21 to push on this? I don't see where those points come from unless it's pick sixes, unless it's fumble sixes. So I'm going to lay the 3 with an offense that I have a lot of confidence in, with Cooper Kupp back, opening things up for Puka Nacua, who was already dominant prior to him returning. I just think there's a lot to be excited about for this Rams team. I know Tom went off a bye. I know the comments are going to kill me on this one. I'm going to lay the 3 before it gets to 3.5 with the LA Rams against the Steelers. It just makes a heck of a lot of sense to me, and it's a math equation for me. If I think that the Rams can get over 24 points, where do the points come from the Steelers? I don't see where it comes from offensively for them, and that's why I have to lay the 3 with the home side.
So I think when you said that, the only way or one of the most probable way for the Steelers to stay in this game would be if they either have a fumble 6, a pick 6, or turn it over in their own red zone, then so they can score an easy points, because they only get to the red zone 1.4 times a game. So hopefully getting there on the defense is one of the more likely scenarios for that. So Matt Stafford's been fantastic this season. This Rams offense has been great. They do a lot of pushing the ball down the field, but that also could create to a lot of turnovers. And this Pittsburgh Steelers team is a team that forces a lot of turnovers. On the other hand, the Rams are going to be missing Kyren Williams, who has literally been their do-it-all everything in the backfield. And while I'm a believer in running backs don't matter, at the same time, talented skill players certainly matter. I think Williams is in that mold. But now we're dealing with the backfield of a 5th-round rookie, Royce Freeman, who, if you remember him, had like a couple of good fantasy weeks back in like 2018, and Myles Gaskin, who had a couple of good fantasy weeks back in like 2020. Would you have any concern that the Rams offense might be a little shut down against this good Steelers defense because they're not going to be able to get anything going on the ground? Or you think Stafford kind of been slinging it, will just keep slinging it as long as he keeps a clean turnover sheet? They should be in good shape.
Well, I also think if you're trying to beat this Steelers team, a lot of what you are trying to stay away from is falling in love with the ground game. And let's be real, McVay, if he has to, he'll go over the top all day long. But no Kyron Williams, they have enough behind him to at least feign a running game and keep people true. I'm not really sure, but really what they do with the pass game and the slants that they run offensively, it's almost an extension of the run game. You know what I mean? Like the average depth of target to a Cooper Kupp, sure, you can bomb the field down to him, but what he loves doing is a little 3-yard shake and then a cross in. Same thing with Puka Nacua. So, I think they can dink and dunk their way down the field, that it doesn't have to be all big shots. When they do big shots, it's typically to Tutu Atwell, and you've even seen his role kind of get phased out over the last 2 weeks since Cooper Kupp has been back. He scored a touchdown in that Eagles game, but since then, it really hasn't been much to write home for Atwell. So, is it concerning that I don't think they're going to have a run game coming into this? Sure, but I think the better way to beat this Steelers team is going through the air, and the Rams offense is built for that. They have a great receiving core. They have a smart quarterback who's playing well, getting the ball out quickly. If he does get the ball out quickly, if it slants down the field, I think it could be a long day for this Steelers secondary, who, yes, they're solid, but if Stafford doesn't have to put air under the ball and he can just keep dinking and dunking, getting into field goal range and then nailing one through for Maher, that's still a way, I think, with how lackadaisical and how much struggle that this Steelers offense has played with. I even think if you're banging through field goals and you get 12 points off of field goals, it almost starts to feel like an insurmountable lead for how this offense is played. Maybe the bye week will change a lot of things. Maybe Matt Canada finally got in the lab, but I don't know if I want to see what Matt Canada's been cooking up for 2 weeks straight. That's the part of the equation that just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't want to lay the 3. I don't want to take the 3, but I will bet that Matt Canada didn't do anything that exciting to change the Pittsburgh Steelers offense.
Yeah, what book offers that? Yeah, we need Matt Canada props. We want that's what we really want to bet.
Matt Canada's creativity prop, like I'm betting the under that he got.
Always the under
this upcoming week. So there's newbie on the Rams -3. Nothing for me, even from a prop perspective. I don't really know what to expect in that matchup. Last but not least, another game where we're just going to kind of talk about our thoughts here. Miami headed to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. As always in the NFL, when you're not playing in a dome, you got to keep up with the weather, even though, it looks like a beautiful October day. We'll talk about it in Philly at 8 o'clock at night, so winds could be getting up there to a Tagovailoa, maybe not great in the winds. I was on WagerTalk today the other day discussing why I like the Dolphins. Since then, I haven't wavered because I like them from Monday. I still like the Dolphins. Not anything that I've personally bet yet. Still have my eye on it. And I've seen a lot of people that I respect, the social media, just general content, backing the Eagles here. I still kind of don't get it, right? Like, you don't have to be always on the same page singing Kumbaya for every single bet. But I want to hear your thoughts as an Eagles fan and as somebody who I respect their opinion. What are your thoughts in this game? Because even with those concerns that I'll bring up again about Miami, I still certainly lean toward the Dolphins here.
Yeah, and I've been pretty dialed in on this Eagles team. And, you hear me talk about them all the time. I was a season ticket holder when I lived in Philadelphia, but I'll bet against them the same that I'll bet on them. For me, this game is a pass through and through, but the sharp side is back in the Philadelphia Eagles bounce back role, facing off against a team that some people don't quite believe in with the 5-1 record that the Dolphins are having. I don't know how legit the Eagles 5-1 record is. You think they should have lost a game to the Rams? In my opinion, they should have lost a game to the Washington Commanders, in a lot of people's opinions. So both of these teams are kind of in the show me role here. And what it comes down to for me is if weather does not become a factor, I just don't see how this Eagles offense keeps up with Miami. Like, for me, the handicap is if this goes over the posted total that's sitting around 51.5, 52s are out there. If this goes over, I don't see how the Eagles keep up with Miami. I think if this game goes over 52, you could be looking at a Miami Dolphins team winning this game by margin. The Eagles, the wind would really help the Eagles if there is gusts of wind that's slowing down that vertical pass attack, because Miami, take your pick, points for, yards for, first downs, yards passing, touchdowns passing, rushing touchdowns, rushing yards. Take your pick. They're number one in all of them. And you can say, well, they haven't really played many strong defenses, this, that, and the other thing. Like, phooey. It's 6 weeks in, and they've done it impressively against multiple squads here. So I think that this Dolphins team, sure, weather is always going to be the factor, and I think that's really what maybe drives people towards the Eagles side in this one. But ATS under Nick Sirianni, when they lose a game, it hasn't been all that great. They're just 4-7 against the spread. So the rah, rally the wagons, whatever you want to call it, that hasn't been Sirianni's MO as far as it goes to covering spreads. And when you have a spread that's under 3, you're really just asking who's going to be winning the game in this case. So I definitely wouldn't be betting any money on the Eagles. I know that it's not a wongable leg unless we get under that 49 for the total, and maybe the weather does that. But taking the Dolphins up to 8.5 makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. And also a little pizza wager that I did is if this game does go over, I alt-lined the Miami Dolphins to 9.5. Miami minus 9.5. It's like plus 376, something like that. And the thing for me is just pizza money on that because, again, if Miami scores points, I think you could be looking at like a 35-21 game where the Eagles get their points, but the red zone woes continue. Maybe that win pushing some field goals wide a little bit. So I just am worried that if this thing turns into a track meet like so many Miami Dolphins games do, I just don't know how this Eagles offense that really hasn't figured out what their identity is and could potentially be without some horses up front. I just don't see how they keep up with an offense that is setting records week after week here in the NFL.
There are a lot of concerns about Lane Johnson being out. That's obviously something that would be absolutely dire for the Philadelphia Eagles. Then also Darius Slay potentially hurt. On the other hand, you have Miami potentially going with a backup center who is graded as one of the worst football players in the National Football League, going against Jalen Carter and co. A lot of the arguments I've seen made that are pro-Philly are that this defensive line is such an edge over this offense, which is true. Then conversely, at the same time, too, this Eagles, even with Lane Johnson, which I don't necessarily agree with, is going to be able to dominate the Miami Dolphins defensive line, which is relatively decent. Another thing on the same hand, the game that the Dolphins got absolutely annihilated in was against the Buffalo Bills, and the Buffalo Bills are the number 1 pressure rate on defense. Eagles are 4th. So they're saying that, the Eagles have a huge advantage there. I'm not denying that. It's true. But I think we're just underestimating the Mike McDaniel scheme, how that the offensive line has been terrible. He just does so much from a scheme perspective to alleviate those concerns. And then number 2, you're also talking about a divisional game between the Bills and Dolphins. And I know a lot of people like to think of everything as independent events because they are, but when it comes to divisional opponents, you can kind of throw a lot of things completely out of the water, especially in the Bills situation where the Dolphins are coming off 70 points. The Bills have been game planning them. They saw them 3 times last year, and they almost lost to a Skylar Thompson team. Like that was a situation where Buffalo had to destroy Miami. Like they had to come out. Obviously, winning by 28 wasn't predicted or guaranteed, but the Bills probably had the edge in that matchup there. I just think that, like you said, Newbie, if the game comes to a track meet, I don't see how the Eagles keep up. A lot of the Eagles' success on offense has been Jalen Hurts avoiding some crazy sack and throwing a ball at A.J. Brown, who he barely toe taps his feet for 20 yards down the field. It's an amazing play by 2 amazing players, but it's not a sustainable method of offensive moving the football up and down the field. I think Miami's going to try to Philadelphia's going to try to run the football to slow down this track. And I think ask Nick Sirianni, he'd agree that they can't keep up in a full-blown track meet with Miami Dolphins. They do everything they can in their power to make it as less of a track meet as possible. But at this point in time, I still think that the Miami Dolphins are the better football team. Unless the winds are 25+ miles per hour and legit, that will affect Tua, and that will keep me off. I will tweet out at Slime Ashton on Twitter if this becomes a GoldSheet play, so you guys could make sure that you guys get in, because I don't want to be talking about a lean and then flip sides and you guys bet me because I'm saying this. So I'll make sure to confirm that on Twitter for everybody when we do the team. But I still really think the Miami Dolphins win this football game, all things considered, barring crazy wins.
Yeah, and it's definitely something to track. Again, the wind seems a little bit overblown to me. I'm just looking here at a couple different weather sources, and sure, around 8 o'clock when the game's going to be cooking, you're looking at 16-mile-per-hour wind gusts. But until you get north of 18 to 20, that's when I start really getting worried about the wind. And also the stadium of the Philadelphia Eagles, the way that it's set up, it really doesn't lend itself, like the wind will spin around a little bit more in the south end zone. But other than that, you really don't see the wind playing much of a factor because of how it's built. And it has, almost like a quasi roof that keeps a lot of that sound in. It doesn't go over the field, but over both of the overhangs. A lot of that wind, if it's blowing east to west, gets blocked in that stadium. So I wouldn't make wind a major part of your handicap, though a lot of people are going to. We'll see if I'm wrong on that one. But at 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts that drop down to about 12 mile per hour throughout the game, I think that's going to be a little bit overblown of a narrative.
Yeah. And like I mentioned on Wager Talk today as well, final point here is like obviously Eagles are coming off a loss against the Jets. Dolphins coming off another blowout against the team. Week to week, you see so many times where the market is just incorrect or like overreacting or underreacting. You can make the case that they're overreacting to the Eagles' loss and underreacting to the Dolphins' win, and vice versa. But I just don't even see that in this situation. I think it's a fair number, and I think even if it closes 3, I'll like please give me that 3 with Miami. I think the wrong team is favored through and through here. And again, I'll tweet out at Slime Action on Twitter /X, whatever it is these days, if or when this becomes a play for the GoldSheet, and we'll tweet out from the GoldSheet account as well. But that'll wrap it up for us for this week. Newbie and I are looking to get back on track this upcoming week, week 7. Recap of the plays: Washington -2, 2.5. That is a GoldSheet play, 3%. Seattle -7.5 from Newbie, locked and loaded. I love that in a teaser and for Survivor, so get in there. Both have leans on Baltimore. I love Lamar Jackson rush touchdown prop there, so take a look at that market as well. Newbie on the Rams, laying the 3, and right now I'm certainly head Miami. It looks like Newbie concurs, but would rather do else, but bet on that football game. And that'll wrap it up for us here. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Let us know in the comments what you think about our plays this week and what you guys are eyeing this week. Hit that like button, drop a subscribe, and best of luck with your bets this weekend. We'll see you guys next week.